a poor girl, humiliated and thrown out of the school's most luxurious party, who against all odds came back to surprise everyone. This is the story of Hailey Parker, a teenager who faced prejudice, mockery, and even rejection from the elite, but discovered within herself a strength no one could erase. More than just a school dance, what she lived through was a silent battle between appearances and truth. And if you've ever gone through moments where people doubted you, you'll see yourself in this journey. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story will reach and how it connects with your life. Hailey Parker never imagined her life would change because of a single piece of paper. The invitation to the most exclusive party at Riverside High arrived like a lightning bolt in the middle of the simple routine she shared with her mother in their small apartment. The golden envelope carried an invisible weight, the promise of a grand night and, at the same time, the risk of facing looks of disdain. For a girl who had always lived on the margins of the school's spotlight, it seemed almost like a dream. The hostess was Madison Clark, the most popular girl at school, surrounded by status and wealth. The contrast between their worlds was undeniable. On one side, the Clarks' luxury, on the other, Hailey's modest reality. But her heart raced, because something told her this invitation wasn't just a coincidence. She held it with trembling hands, staring at every detail of the paper as if she could decipher some hidden message. The golden hue reflected the light from the apartment window, giving the scene an almost unreal glow. Hailey knew she didn't own designer dresses, expensive shoes, or glamorous makeup, but she carried something not always visible: courage. And sometimes courage speaks louder than appearances. The dilemma grew inside her. Accepting meant exposing herself. Refusing would mean wasting a rare opportunity. Her mind filled with doubts, imagining what could happen at that party. Maybe she would be welcomed with open arms, or maybe she would become the target of ridicule. The invitation, which for many was nothing more than access to fun, for her was a turning point. As she tucked the envelope into the drawer, she felt a mix of fear and excitement. Riverside High had never given her the chance to be noticed. She was always in the background, nearly invisible, while the most influential names basked in the spotlight. Perhaps that night would be different. Perhaps it would be the chance to show that even those from small places can take up big spaces. In the kitchen, the simple smell of dinner contrasted with the grand thoughts running through her mind. Hailey knew she couldn't simply ignore this calling. Inside her, a silent determination was being born, almost like a voice whispering that even in the face of risk, she had to go. Life doesn't offer invitations like this twice. And even though fear tried to paralyze her steps, Hailey had already made her decision. She would attend the party, even if it meant facing judgment. Her heart beat fast, but there was also a sparkle in her eyes, the kind that comes from someone who, quietly, knows they're about to live something unforgettable. The invitation was given, the choice was made, but she had no idea what awaited her at the Clark mansion, where glitter and judgment would collide in a night capable of changing the course of her story. As she crossed the mansion gates, Hailey felt as if she had stepped into another world. The hall glowed with crystal chandeliers, and the sound of live music filled every corner. With each step, the contrast between her simplicity and the surrounding opulence seemed to grow stronger. Curious eyes followed her figure, some surprised, others quietly disdainful. Her heart raced, but she held her posture firm. The luxurious decor left no doubt. Madison Clark wanted to impress. Walls covered with artwork, tables overflowing with sophisticated food, waiters serving sparkling glasses. Hailey, in her modest dress, felt like a dissonant note in that extravagant melody. Still, there was a spark in her gaze, a desire not to shrink before such grandeur. It was the beginning of an invisible test. Ashley Miller, Madison's inseparable shadow, quickly noticed Hailey's presence. With a malicious grin, she made a mocking remark about the simple dress Hailey wore. Laughter echoed among those nearby, amplifying the embarrassment. Ashley seemed to feed off that power, the ability to turn insecurities into a spectacle. Hailey, however, took a deep breath, determined not to show weakness. The group around Ashley delighted in every cruel word. Small jabs were delivered as if they were innocent jokes, but the venom was in the tone. Hailey felt the weight of their laughter, as if each one was a reminder that she didn't belong there. Even so, her eyes kept wandering through the room, searching for something that might give her strength. It was then that Jake Thompson, the captain of the basketball team, turned his gaze toward her. Unlike the others, his expression carried no ridicule. There was a quiet curiosity, almost as if he was trying to figure out who this girl was, the one brave enough to stand there without disguises. Hailey noticed, and for a brief moment, hope flickered inside her. Jake had always been surrounded by popularity, but appearances never seemed to satisfy him. Watching Hailey, he saw something different, the courage of someone facing a hostile crowd just to assert her presence. He didn't say a word, only observed, yet that simple gesture broke for an instant, the sense of isolation weighing on her. Meanwhile, Madison continued parading through the party like a true queen of luxury. Eyes turned to her flawless outfit and her commanding presence. Yet deep down there was something about Hailey that drew attention. Her difference. That simplicity contrasted so sharply with the setting that, paradoxically, it made her stand out even more. The contrast was set, and it would be impossible to erase. Amidst the glitter, laughter, and judgment, Hailey realized the party was far more than music and lights. It was a stage for silent battles, where every detail was judged as a symbol of power or weakness. She didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of a long night of trials where her place in that world would be tested in the cruelest way possible. At the height of the party, when the lights shone brightest and the music reached its liveliest point, Madison Clark decided it was time to act. Surrounded by a group of classmates hanging on her every move, she raised her voice so everyone could hear. The hall, once filled with laughter and chatter, gradually fell silent. Hailey felt a chill run down her spine. Madison walked toward Hailey with the confidence of someone stepping onto her own stage. Her designer heels struck the floor like the rhythm of a sentence being delivered. With a cold smile, she threw out the accusation. Hailey hadn't been invited. She was nothing but a gatecrasher. Shock rippled through the hall, and all eyes turned to the humble girl. Hailey tried to explain, but her voice faltered under the weight of the stares. It was as if every person there was waiting for her reaction, savoring the scene as part of a cruel spectacle. Ashley, standing by Madison's side, let out a loud laugh, intensifying the humiliation. Hailey's simple dress felt heavier than ever. The words echoed like hammer blows. "You don't belong here." Madison made sure to repeat them, leaving no room for doubt. The guests' expressions varied between surprise and amusement, but almost no one dared to stand up for the girl. The complicit silence cut deeper than the open laughter. Hailey felt her face burn, tears threatening to fall uncontrollably. Her watery eyes revealed the pain of someone carrying far more than just the shame of the moment. Each step backward was followed by whispers, as if even her retreat fueled the cruelty. The weight of isolation pressed down harder with every second. Madison, satisfied, lifted her chin as though she had won a battle. The power to expel someone from her party confirmed her undisputed reign. Ashley, thrilled by the spectacle, nodded approvingly, feeding the condemning looks around the room. Hailey, shrinking further and further, could see no way out. When the first tears rolled down her face, she turned and ran for the exit. The echo of her hurried footsteps against the marble contrasted with the silence of the crowd that simply watched. The door closed behind her, and the music, paused for just a moment, resumed as if nothing had happened. But for Hailey, everything had changed. Outside, wrapped in the cold night air, Hailey finally let the tears flow freely. The pain of humiliation cut deep, but within it, something greater began to stir. The need to prove she would not be defined by that moment. What seemed like an ending was, in truth, the beginning of a transformation no one at that party could ever predict. Back at the small apartment, Hailey closed the door behind her with a heavy sigh. The muffled sound of the party still echoed in her mind, mixed with the laughter that had wounded her. The simple dress, now stained with tears, seemed to carry the full weight of humiliation. She sat on the couch, hugging her knees, and let the sobs flow without restraint. It was then that Sarah Parker, her mother, approached quietly. A 40-year-old black woman, plus-sized and with a weary expression. She worked long hours as a waitress, but always found strength to comfort her daughter. Kneeling in front of Hailey, she held her face with firm hands and offered tenderness through her gaze. Her presence was the shelter the girl needed. Sarah didn't need many words to console her. She simply said that expensive clothes and important last names do not define who someone truly is. Each phrase sounded like an undeniable truth, as if drawn from a lifetime of struggles. Hailey, even through her sobs, absorbed those words like seeds falling into fertile soil. As she caressed her daughter's hair, Sarah reminded her of how they had always faced hardships together. She spoke of simple stories from the past when every penny mattered, yet they never lacked the courage to start again. Hailey saw in her mother's memories the reflection of a quiet strength that never needed stages or applause to exist. The tears began to give way to a different spark in Hailey's eyes. Her face, still damp, now displayed traces of a budding determination. What had once been shame was slowly turning into the will to prove her life would not be defined by a single moment of cruelty. She could not control what had been done to her, but she could choose what to do next. With a tired smile, Sarah reminded her that dignity cannot be bought. She said that a person's worth lies in the courage to be genuine, even when the world tries to impose another version. Hailey listened to every word as if they were stones forming a bridge to cross her pain. There, in the simple warmth of home, a promise was born. Hailey stood and went to the cracked mirror in her bedroom. The reflection still showed red eyes and a wrinkled dress, but behind that image there was something new. For the first time, she didn't see herself as a victim, but as someone capable of turning scars into strength. She felt that from that moment on, she would no longer allow herself to be silenced. That night, while the city outside carried on its rhythm, Hailey made a promise to herself. She would show the world who she truly was. The reunion with her inner strength did not erase the pain, but it transformed it into fuel. And without realizing it, this awakening would become the spark of a transformation that would change the course of her story. In the days that followed, Hailey shut herself away in her room, but not to grieve. Between dried tears and memories of humiliation, a quiet flame was born. The desire to prove she would not be defined by cruelty. On the small table against the wall, she gathered papers, old magazines, and the simple camera she had received for her birthday. There, something new would begin. Photography, once just a hobby, became her way of breathing. Hailey spent hours exploring the neighborhood, capturing scenes most people overlooked. Children playing in the street, the golden light of sunset reflecting on windows, her mother's tired smile after a long shift. Each click revealed hidden beauty in everyday life. With the help of Chloe Ramirez, her best friend, the transformation took shape. Chloe, creative and bold, began sewing unique pieces so Hailey could also express herself through fashion. Cheap fabrics were reinvented into outfits full of personality, each detail reflecting authenticity. Together they created their own language. On the family's old computer, Hailey dove into digital design. She discovered how to edit her photos, experiment with colors, overlays, and textures. Even with limited resources, every project carried intensity and originality. It was as if she were slowly building a true mirror of who she really was. Gradually, her creations began to be shared online. First, a few curious classmates, then strangers who found beauty in the simplicity of her images. Hailey realized her voice was finally being heard, not through shouting or confrontation, but through art. With each bit of recognition, her self-esteem blossomed. Chloe celebrated every positive comment, encouraging Hailey to keep going. She said social media was only the beginning, that this could go much further. Hailey, once shy, began to believe in the possibility of being seen not as the poor girl, but as the talented young woman who turned fragility into creative expression. The nights were no longer filled with tears, but with projects. Hailey filled notebooks with ideas, assembled collages, tested compositions. The modest bedroom became an improvised studio, covered in drawings, photographs, and colorful fabrics. Each day, a piece of pain was replaced with quiet pride. And in that rhythm, Hailey began changing not only how she saw herself, but how the world saw her. The process of creating was also a process of healing. Without realizing it, she was taking her first steps toward a future that promised much more than just surviving. As days went by, the hallways of Riverside High were consumed by a single subject, the Winter Ball. Decorated posters lined the walls, and groups of students discussed outfits, dates, and expectations. Hailey, who was now beginning to gain confidence through her artistic talent, observed everything from a distance. The past still hurt, but there was a new spark in her eyes born of her recent transformation. It was during an ordinary afternoon that the surprise arrived. Members of the student committee approached Hailey with an official invitation in hand. The envelope bore the school seal and a subtle shine that symbolized prestige. For a moment, she thought it was a prank, remembering the humiliation of the last party. But the serious expressions of her classmates left no doubt. The invitation was no coincidence. Behind the scenes, Jake Thompson had insisted that her name be included on the list. He admired Hailey's courage and authenticity, and believed she deserved to be part of the event. Although he hadn't revealed his feelings, his silent actions showed support. When Hailey discovered this, she felt a mix of surprise and gratitude. The news spread quickly. Many students were shocked by the decision. Some whispered in disapproval, while others acknowledged Hailey's changing status. The school seemed divided. On one side, those who saw her as an intruder. On the other, those who began to see her as someone defying the norms. The invitation was turning into the symbol of a new chapter. Madison Clark, upon hearing the news, was furious. Used to controlling who shone and who faded, she couldn't stand the idea of Hailey having a place at the most anticipated event of the year. To her, it was a personal insult, almost as if her invisible crown were under threat. In silence, she promised she would find a way to ruin that moment. Meanwhile, Chloe was overjoyed. She encouraged Hailey to accept the invitation, reminding her that it was the chance to show everyone how much she had changed. The friend was already imagining designs for the dress, mixing fabrics and unique details that would convey authenticity. To Chloe, this ball was more than a party. It was the chance to crown Hailey's transformation. Still unsure, Hailey spent the night reflecting. The invitation in her hand seemed to pulse, reminding her of the humiliation she had endured and at the same time, the strength she had gained. Facing the stares of the elite would be risky, but refusing would be like denying her own growth. Slowly, the decision began to take root in her heart. And so, between painful memories and new hopes, Hailey understood that the ball would not just be a school event. It would be the stage where she could rise before all those who once doubted her. Little did she know, however, that the night held even greater surprises, both of triumph and of confrontation. The night of the winter ball arrived, and the entire school seemed to buzz with anticipation. The gymnasium had been transformed into an elegant hall, with soft lights reflecting on the walls and tables adorned with shimmering arrangements. Groups of students arrived in their finest outfits, radiating confidence and excess. Amidst laughter and camera flashes, the atmosphere was pure spectacle. Outside, Hailey Parker took a deep breath before crossing the doors. The dress she wore was a unique creation by Chloe Ramirez, made from simple fabrics but sewn with creativity, blending elegance with authenticity. Every detail carried the touch of her friend's artistry. Hailey, who once hid herself, now revealed confidence with every step. As she entered the hall, silence fell for a few seconds. The eyes that once judged her now turned in awe. The contrast between her creative simplicity and the surrounding extravagance made her shine in an unexpected way. The surprised expressions on her classmates' faces revealed that Hailey had broken an invisible barrier. Jake Thompson, standing among the crowd, did not hesitate. Wearing a modern suit without excess, he walked straight toward her. His gaze radiated respect and admiration. Without leaving room for doubt, he extended his hand to invite her to dance. That simple public gesture was enough to transform the atmosphere. Her classmates watched in astonishment as the basketball team captain chose the girl who had once been humiliated. Some whispered in shock, others simply stared in silence. Hailey, still hesitant, accepted Jake's hand, her heart racing. In the center of the dance floor, the two became the focal point of the night. From a distance, Chloe smiled proudly. She knew that this moment was more than just a dance invitation. It was public recognition that Hailey had claimed her place. The dress she had crafted with her own hands seemed to shine along with her friend. To Chloe, it was like watching a dream take shape before her eyes. Madison Clark, on the other hand, could barely contain her fury. Dressed in flawless designer clothes and perfect makeup, she watched the scene as if it were a personal insult. Her eyes filled with rage, her clenched fists betraying her frustration. For the first time, her queen of the school status seemed threatened in front of everyone. As the music echoed and the dance steps began, Hailey felt that every movement was more than choreography. It was the confirmation of her transformation, the moment she showed everyone she would not be defined by the past. The entire hall seemed to vibrate with the breaking of old patterns, but this was only the beginning of an even greater confrontation. Amid the festive atmosphere of the winter ball, Hailey and Jake's moment on the dance floor quickly became the center of attention. The music filled the hall, but what truly mattered were the eyes fixed on that scene. Hailey, confident in her unique dress, radiated something no one had expected. Her presence, once a target of ridicule, was now transforming into respect. Madison Clark, however, could not stand by in silence. With her heels echoing across the floor, she marched to the center, interrupting the dance. Her flawless posture masked the fury boiling inside. The room fell silent as she raised her voice, determined to remind everyone who the true queen of the school was. Her words cut sharp as blades. Madison pointed out Hailey's humble background, mocking her financial struggles in front of everyone. She spoke of the small apartment she lived in, implying she could never belong among the elite gathered there. Each phrase landed like a calculated strike meant to shatter Hailey's newfound confidence. For a moment, Hailey felt the weight of the attack. Her heart raced and the hall seemed to shrink around her, but she quickly remembered her mother's words, the nights of creation with Chloe, and the strength she had found in her art. Instead of retreating, she took a deep breath and lifted her head high. With a steady voice, she responded before everyone, "You can buy clothes, parties, and followers, Madison, but never the courage to be true." The words echoed through the hall, breaking the complicit silence. The impact was immediate, as if an invisible current had shifted direction. The crowd, once hesitant, erupted in support. Students began to applaud, some cheered, and even those who had laughed at her in the past now looked with admiration. Madison, on the other hand, lost control. Her once perfect face twisted in rage at the public defeat. For the first time, she was no longer the one dictating the rules of the night. Jake remained by Hailey's side, reinforcing the moment with his silent presence. He didn't need to speak. The simple gesture of holding her hand was enough to show she wasn't alone. The contrast between Hailey's strength and Madison's fury painted a clear picture. Something had changed forever at that ball. The hall, now filled with applause and looks of respect, seemed to crown Hailey as the true protagonist of the night. The humiliation of the past had been turned into triumph. But this confrontation was only the tip of the iceberg, for even greater secrets were about to surface, changing the course of everyone present. The morning after the ball, Riverside High was in turmoil. The school's social media buzzed with videos and comments about the confrontation between Hailey and Madison. While some praised the courage of the humble girl, others criticized the arrogance of the former queen of the school. For the first time, Madison was not controlling the narrative, and that changed everything. Soon after, rumors about the Clark family began to circulate. Leaked documents revealed that Madison's father was involved in financial fraud schemes. The news spread quickly, reaching even the local newspapers. The image of perfection so carefully built began to crumble before the city's eyes. Classmates who once idolized Madison now kept their distance. The school's elite, eager to protect their reputations, avoided being associated with the scandal. The glitter of lavish parties was no longer enough to hide the cracks. With each passing day, the Clark name shifted from a symbol of status to one of shame. Meanwhile, Hailey Parker was living the opposite reality. Her artistic projects, once limited to small online circles, began to draw the attention of teachers and local curators. Photographs and collages capturing the beauty of everyday life were now seen as promising works. Little by little, Hailey was becoming more than a student. She was becoming an artist. Chloe Ramirez celebrated every achievement with her. Proudly, she helped organize Hailey's portfolio and dreamed alongside her about the future. The simple bedroom, once the scene of tears, was now filled with invitations to student exhibitions and messages of support. Hailey realized that her artistic voice was growing stronger. Jake Thompson stayed by her side, following each step. To him, Hailey was living proof that courage and authenticity could overcome the weight of appearances. Though he made no speeches, his constant presence showed everyone it was more than admiration. It was genuine respect. Hailey found in him a source of quiet support. Madison, on the other hand, felt the ground slip away beneath her feet. The looks that once exalted her now judged her. The title of queen seemed to slip through her fingers, and loneliness became inevitable. Her fury toward Hailey turned into silent despair, powerless against the revelations about her family. The city, which once applauded luxury and power, began to value something different: authenticity. And at the center of this shift was Hailey, whose art was born of pain but blossomed into hope. The contrast between downfall and rise made one thing clear: nothing stays hidden forever, and masks always fall. The gym still echoed with the applause of the previous night when Hailey Parker took her next step. At the center of the hall, before classmates and teachers, she raised her voice with firmness, revealing something no one expected to hear. Her art, once confined to her simple bedroom and social media, had gained recognition beyond the school. With a restrained smile, Hailey announced she had been invited to exhibit her photographs in an important art gallery in the city. The initial silence was followed by widespread expressions of astonishment. Students who once saw her as invisible now looked at her as a young woman with a promising future. The news transformed her story into a public victory. Jake Thompson could not hide his pride. He stepped forward and declared in front of everyone that he had always believed in her. His gesture was not only supportive but also affirming. Hailey was not alone. The basketball team captain, popular and admired, stood by the side of the girl who had once been mocked. Chloe Ramirez, overwhelmed with emotion, could hardly hold back tears of joy. For her, every piece created alongside her friend, every night they spent dreaming together, now carried an even greater meaning. The dress Hailey wore at the ball seemed in some way to foreshadow this new chapter of achievements. As the hall applauded, Madison Clark watched from afar. The fury on her face had given way to a mixture of disbelief and bitterness. Her invisible crown lay in pieces and nothing could fix it. The world she once knew was collapsing while Hailey rose in front of everyone. The teachers present were equally impressed. Some had already noticed the young girl's talent, but now they saw the full scope of her potential. They whispered among themselves about the bright future that might unfold from this journey. For the first time, Hailey was not only seen as a student but as an emerging artist. The hall, filled with energy, seemed to witness more than just an announcement. It was the birth of a new narrative, the confirmation that courage and authenticity could break any barrier. Hailey, who had once been expelled and humiliated, now received public recognition, and every look reflected respect. In that moment, Hailey walked toward the exit, accompanied by Jake and Chloe. There were no more tears, only confidence in each step. The future, once uncertain, now seemed to shine before her. It was the beginning of something greater, and everyone knew that night would be remembered as the moment everything changed. Hailey's journey reveals something many people forget. It's not the setting you're born into that defines the stage of your life, but the courage to stay true to who you are. What began as humiliation turned into strength, and what seemed like weakness became the greatest weapon against arrogance. How many times have you stopped believing in yourself because of other people's opinions? Every step Hailey took is a reminder that the fall of the untouchables happens when truth comes to light, and that opportunities arise for those who persist. Maybe you're going through something similar, being judged, underestimated, or ignored. What if instead of retreating, you turned that pain into fuel to prove to yourself just how capable you are? Now I want you to reflect. What is the ball in your life where you need to walk in with your head held high? What truth do you still need to speak out loud? If this story inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep following content that will challenge the way you see life. The next chapter could be yours.